We're joined by Jacksonville doctor Charles McIntosh, who's being honored by OneJax with its highest honor, a Lifetime Achievement Award. Welcome, Dr. McIntosh.
Thank you.
We're also joined by his greatest champion and a man who nominated him, Lawrence Dennis, longtime educator, principal, and board member of the Kids Hope Alliance. Good morning, Mr. Dennis.
Good morning.
So, Dr. McIntosh, first of all, congratulations. You were the first pediatrician in Jacksonville in 1958. You were the second only in Florida. Remind us a little bit of what it was like to practice at that time.
Well, when I arrived in Jacksonville, 1958, I found it in almost the same condition as it was before I entered medical school. I'm a native of Jacksonville, Florida, and over the years I've come to love it as a place to live. I found Jacksonville with what I would call almost primitive conditions. In the area where I established my office, there were still sandy streets. And in various portions of Jacksonville, there was many areas where they had sandy streets. And some places did not have toilets that were, I would call, even beginning to be modern with water, outdoor toilets. And I found children still having worms, intestinal worms. As a matter of fact, the only child that I've lost in my practice for many years had intestinal worms, obstructive. You don't hear about that now because these conditions have been corrected. Most of the streets are paved with curb. No one has an outdoor toilet within the city limits of Jacksonville, Florida. Those are just some of the things, the conditions that I would hope do not exist anywhere else in the state of Florida.
And so you were seeing conditions like that, these, terrible parasites that even took the life of one of your patients at that time.
Absolutely.
What were some of the other health issues that the children that you saw as their pediatrician were facing?
Well, malnutrition, I think, was high on the list of childhood conditions that I saw. We had also, outside of malnutrition, there was a high rate of infections, particularly during the winter months, upper respiratory infections, ear infections. There were children who had various allergic conditions. Asthma was very high on the list, and mostly due to environmental conditions.
Remind us a little bit of what those conditions were like. I mean, we know that there were at that time different ways of processing, say, garbage. There were incinerators operating in the city. There were more open air trash dumps. But what were the
Absolutely.
contributing environmental conditions?
These were in connection also with the sandy streets. Very poor city connections as far as disposal of waste, and even the condition of the housing at that time were very poor. Most of the people really owned the property that they were on, but they weren't able to keep it up. So roofs, windows, floors compounded the efficacy of heating in the winter and cooling in the summers. And many of the children suffered because of this. We saw conditions of skin problems. One of the most frequent ones was what we had a condition we call impetigo, where skin sores were a result of improper sanitation, um, and of course exposure to outside sandy streets, which was the source of the intestinal parasites. If we don't hear about those things now, particularly in metropolis cities where sanitations are 100%.
How difficult was, I mean, your practice? Obviously, you were dealing with a population of kids that were more impacted by these kinds of problems than their
Right.
white counterparts because of segregation. How did that impact just your enthusiasm for the work, the difficulty of doing the job?
Well, I saw the need to um, get involved with the forces that were controlling these conditions, and of course, there were several organizations that you could belong to to help the city, the Department of Health, do that. Aside from that, I was approached by a friend of mine to join the Boy Scouts of America, and that was one of my first volunteer organizations that I found very interesting. I was a scout myself as a child, and uh, I remember those moments with my scoutmaster. I never really advanced far enough in it to become involved at the higher levels of scouting because of my schoolwork and availability. But I did find that the Northeast Florida chapter of Boy Scouts of America uh, was able to help, and I was able to join the church groups in Boy Scouting, and I found that a lot of fun as well. I was educated as much as the children because of the my counterparts at the uh, supervisory level in scouting, and I enjoyed the camping. I enjoyed the interaction with the boys, and it was just an overall good time for me for that.
Dr. McIntosh, you're 97 now?
97, and in a few weeks, I'll be 98.
All right. Happy almost birthday. I want to bring Lawrence Dennis into the conversation. We are talking to Dr. Charles McIntosh. He's the first Black pediatrician in Jacksonville. He's being honored with a OneJax Humanitarian Award, its highest honor this year. Lawrence Dennis, you are a well-known person in the community as well, longtime educator. You're a board member at the Kids Hope Alliance. You've been involved in a lot of children's issues just by virtue of being a principal and working with kids your whole life. What is it about Dr. McIntosh's particular legacy that you think is worthy of being recognized?
Uh, well, when you think in terms of this gentleman and what he's accomplished uh, right here in his own hometown, not just having an effect on the local, but also the entire state. The fact that he is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, which I'm a member of the fraternity as well. As a matter of fact, I serve as the executive director for our foundation.
And you're wearing the insignia on your sweater right now.
I most certainly am.
Tell us what that fraternity does and is. What's its driving mission?
Well, when you think in terms of our motto, achievement in every field of human endeavor, and Dr. Mack pretty much is a shining example of exactly what that's all about. Thinking in terms of the fact that he has been a member of this fraternity now for 80 years. 80 years. And the kinds of things that he's done in his community, not for himself, but for those that he's practiced with. He's been very, very vocal in terms of the old Stanton High School, doing a lot of work as far as that is concerned. And when we think in terms of overall body of work, we as the foundation decided to lend his name to an endeavor that we're involved with. It is the creation of a building that's located, that will be located in Hills Zone 1, right off Moncrief Road. It's going to be entitled the Dr. Charles B. McIntosh Community Achievement Center. This is a 17,000 square foot facility that we are building in conjunction with Wilson and also Sulzbacher that will have a medical component that will encompass 4,500 square feet of the 17,000 and provide services, pediatric services, for students, for kids in that particular area. The fact that with what he's done within this community, the medical component, the
Do you want to run us through some of his accomplishments? I mean, I've got a long list of them here, but just some of the things that he's best known for.
well, obviously, you've already mentioned the fact that he is the first black pediatrician here in Jacksonville, the second in the state of Florida to practice. He's also been recognized by two governors, Governor Graham and also, I believe, was it Governor Askew, for awards. He's done a lot of research for sickle cell. He's been recognized by the University of Florida for his accomplishments, for those similar types of accomplishments. And the thing about it is, this is one of the most modest individuals that you'll ever want to meet. When you begin to think and talk about his accomplishments within this community, he didn't have to say it; people will say it for him, and that's something that we really do admire.
Do you recall when you first met him or first heard of him?
During my time, I did 37 years in Duval County Public Schools. I was elementary principal, middle school principal, senior high school principal, and also regional superintendent of schools. So I knew the name. Did not actually meet him until I got and became active within the fraternity. But it all matched. It all matched, and the fact that there are so many individuals that hold this man in great esteem. He has such a level of respect within this entire community. It didn't really matter, white, black, medical, non-medical. He has made an impact, and that's why we felt it not robbery to associate his name with this facility that we're doing.
I understand, Dr. McIntosh, that your practice is actually, it's a building now that remains on A. Philip Randolph, kind of along that main corridor of the east side was your medical practice. Am I correct in understanding that you actually took care of, on one occasion, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King?
Yes, I did.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, this was during his tour in St. Augustine in the early 1960s, and in conjunction with the Jacksonville branch NAACP, they were doing their work against discrimination, segregation, and affairs of St. Augustine in that area. And he got sick one morning, and the president of our NAACP here, Mr. Rutledge Pearson, was in St. Augustine, happened to be in St. Augustine at that time, and they thought that he would better off by seeing a doctor in Jacksonville rather than a doctor in St. Augustine. So they brought him over to the office. They got there about 10 o'clock. I was in the throes of looking after my patients. And, of course, I was surprised. They didn't call me before they were on the way because they knew where I was. So, when he got there, I could see he was just tired. He had and I hope that I'm not transgressing this family, but there was a urinary tract infection that was fueling the whole thing. And we treated it and told him to get some rest, stop marching and stop fighting for at least a week. And he got over it. And he was, well, I don't think that he put this as a big deterrent of anyone for doing that kind of work. But
did he follow doctor's orders as far as you know?
He followed doctor's orders. He went back to St. Augustine. I never saw him again.
Yeah. That's quite a moment in anyone's career, I would guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Dennis noted your work on sickle cell, and for people who don't know much about the disease, it is an extremely painful, often fatal. It afflicts the African American population more.
Yes, I was fortunate enough to get involved in this disease uh, as a result of the work that was done at Howard University and Dr. Scott, who was a pediatrician there and very involved in the disease. Not much was taught about sickle cell disease in medical school at that time. And I was involved with it a bit at New York University as a result of my biochemistry work there. And when I went to medical school, of course, I think I knew more about it than anybody else because of that.
Mm-hmm.
Not very much is taught, and when physicians entered practice at that time, not very much interest. But coming to Jacksonville, with a large African American population, there was quite a bit of interest in it, and I joined those forces, and we established in Tampa for the first time the State Sickle Cell Disease Association, which was one of the first of its kind in the nation. Florida led with about 21 chapters of volunteers that really were serious about their work in the community, and was established and was able to establish with the University of Florida and many other teaching hospitals in the state of Florida units that was able to take care of sickle cell disease as much as we knew about it at that time. At the present day, over the last 50 years, we have developed several ways that we can manage the disease. You might call them cures,
Mm-hmm.
but patients now are much better off than they were 50 years ago with this disease throughout the nation.
And no small thanks to the work that you've done on that. Dr. Charles McIntosh, congratulations so much on your OneJax honor. Really appreciate you
Yes.
being here today. It's very nice to meet you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Lawrence Dennis, who nominated him, thank you so much for being here as well.
Thanks so much for inviting us. This man has a wonderful story, and I love having the opportunity for him to tell that story. It should not be a secret. And again, for individuals that may be listening that would like to support the efforts for the construction for the Dr. Charles B. McIntosh Community Achievement Center, you can certainly do so through Kappa Alpha Psi Jacksonville Foundation Incorporated.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Dennis.